Dave Palumbo here for Species Nutrition, and I want to talk to you a little bit about a product that we produce called ARTHROLYZE. And the reason I'm bringing this up today is because I've noticed that a lot of people lately have been complaining about joint pain. We see a lot of people with hip replacements in our industry, shoulder replacements. I have two myself. And I have to just say, I needed a shoulder replacement 18 years ago, and I put mine off for 18 years, and I'm going to tell you how I did it with a certain supplement. Had I taken the supplement prior to having my injuries, I probably never would have had a shoulder replacement, but that's another story. The point is that there's something we can do about our joint pain. We were always told, at least when I first started working out, that joints are avascular tissues, meaning they don't have a blood supply to them. If you ever look at cartilage, look at it if you're eating a piece of meat and you rip the turkey bone off of the turkey, you can see the white coating on the joint capsule. That's the cartilage. Cartilage is white. There's no blood supply, or very little blood supply to it. So people thought that if you damaged it, it couldn't repair itself. But that's not true, because oxygen diffuses into those tissues and they can heal themselves. The problem was that we never gave our bodies the raw materials that our bodies needed to repair the connective tissue, the cartilage that lines the joints, the collagen that's underlying that. And think about it. You grab that turkey leg off of the turkey, and what do you eat? You eat the meat. You don't eat the white part. You don't eat the connective tissue, right? We throw that in the garbage, or we give it to the dog. But that's the part that will give your body the raw materials it needs to repair joint and connective tissue. But we don't consume any of that in our diet. So here we are, we go to the gym, we train real hard, we eat tons of animal protein, which will help replenish and rebuild the muscle tissue, but we do nothing for the joints and connective tissue. So, probably about 25, 30 years ago, they realized that, if we give the body the raw materials, to this joint connective tissue, we can start the repair process going. And that's when glucosamine supplements first came out on the market. Glucosamine is like a precursor to what's called glycosaminoglycans. These are subunits that make up the cartilage matrix in our body, or the connective tissue. You don't have to be a science expert to really understand this process, but understand that the building blocks of cartilage is glucosamine, essentially. It's one of the components that will help rebuild that matrix, and it's one of the components we need to consume in our diet. Now, a lot of glucosamine is garnished from the shellfish industry. If you've ever smelled or tasted an oyster shell, it's not very tasty. Not the oyster itself, the oyster shell. Matter of fact, I've told the story before. I've given my dogs these glucosamine little treats, and they won't even eat them because and I tasted one, because it was disgusting. So glucosamine doesn't taste good. So you're not going to be scooping it into your protein shake anytime soon. So we put them in capsules. The problem is, in the past at least, is that people were not taking enough of this stuff. There's a threshold amount of glucosamine that needs to be consumed to help repair joint connective tissue. Now, what is that threshold? Science would tell you 1,500 milligrams per day. That's what a lot of studies are being done. But what are the studies being done on? They're being done by 90-year-old men or women who are in need of knee replacements and hip replacements, and they're finding that if they give them 1,500 milligrams, they get a little bit of joint relief. We're not looking as athletes for joint relief. We're looking for joint repair. We're looking for, hey, we're going to the gym, we're breaking down tissue, muscle tissue, we're breaking down joint connective tissue. We want to repair this. We need to repair a lot of it, because we're really exerting ourselves, and we're grinding these joints, with heavy weights. We need a lot more glucosamine than the average person would, who doesn't do anything on a regular basis. I've, through my studies, found that 4,000 milligrams or 4 grams of glucosamine per day is ideal. You hit that threshold amount every day and you get joint relief. The question is, what form of glucosamine do you want to use? There's multiple forms. The two major forms on the market are glucosamine sulfate, which has historically been the one that everyone's used, and now they're trying to sell more glucosamine hydrochloride. The hydrochloride form is cheaper. It's a little bit more bioavailable because there's not as much volume of it. So you can use a smaller volume of it and extract more of it. Whereas glucosamine sulfate, because it has the added sulfate, and you still need the salt in there to stabilize that, you have to take a little bit more volume. So it takes up a little more room in the capsules. But most people like to, or at least I've noticed recently in the industry, most people are pushing towards the hydrochloride form because it is cheaper to get. And let's face it, it's all about margins, right? But that's a big mistake that people are making. I've always used glucosamine sulfate, and I will continue to use it in my product, ARTHROLYZE Elite, because of the fact that it's better. And people say, but the effectiveness is the same on all the studies they're doing. It is and it isn't, okay? There are different effects that you get from glucosamine when you consume it, okay? There's the lubrication effect of the joint, making more synovial fluid, which is the liquid portion that goes between the joints and lubricates the joints. There's the rebuilding of the cartilage effect of glucosamine, which is what we're really interested in as people who work out vigorously, athletically. And then there's the slight anti-inflammatory effect of it. So, in lower doses, you get the anti-inflammatory effect, and you might get the production of the synovial fluid, but you don't get the repair of the cartilage itself, which is what we need, because the more we rub those joints together and wear them down, eventually you hit bone on bone, and that's when you need a joint replacement. We don't want to get to that point. Glucosamine sulfate, the sulfate portion, that's not present in glucosamine hydrochloride, is actually a biologically active form of sulfur. Sulfur is one of the major components of connective tissue and joint and connective tissue. A lot of people don't realize this. In muscle tissue, there's very little sulfur, but in joint tissue, it's there. And we don't really consume anything that has a lot of sulfur in it. So the glucosamine sulfate form of glucosamine is beneficial because we're getting sulfur from the sulfate aspect, which is not happening if you're using the hydrochloride version. So right off the bat, glucosamine sulfate is superior. Now, do you have to take a little bit more of it? Yeah, but you know what? Most people are not taking enough, even glucosamine hydrochloride, because they're going by the research studies, which deal, once again, with old people who don't really train, And what a lot of these companies are doing is they're putting natural anti-inflammatory substances, and most of you, when you think of anti-inflammatory, you think of ibuprofen, Advil, stuff like that. Those are drug, I guess you could say, created anti-inflammatories, but there are a lot of natural ones out there. Boswellia extract is one, cissus, turmeric. You guys have heard a lot of these herbal anti-inflammatories, but they work the same way. They inhibit the COX-2, which is an inflammation pathway in the body. We've also found that that's not something that athletes want to do, especially bodybuilders, because if you reduce too much inflammation in the body, you don't grow muscle, because when you damage muscle tissue, that inflammatory reaction is what basically instructs the body, or sends out signals for the body to repair itself. If you reduce too much inflammation, even using natural forms of this, even using natural forms, if you reduce too much inflammation, even using natural forms of anti-inflammatories like cissus, like Boswellia, you're going to still blunt the muscle building process, and we do not want to do this. So you can't cheat, in other words. The goal of taking a joint and repair supplement is not to reduce pain for most of us. As bodybuilders, as people who work out, the goal is to repair the joint connective tissue while building muscle. It's not to just get rid of and put a Band-Aid on whatever you're feeling. Pain is a good indicator sometimes that something needs to be done. If you have pain in the joint, it's because it's exposed, it's not healing properly. Let's give the body the raw materials to heal it. Let's not cover up the inflammation by reducing it, because that's not going to help the process. Matter of fact, it's going to make it worse, because it's going to prevent your body from building muscle optimally. So once again, in ARTHROLYZE Elite, we use 4,000 milligrams of glucosamine per day as an effective dosage. We also put in even an additional biologically available source of sulfur known as MSM, or methylsulfonylmethane, at 4 grams per day as well. So we're giving the body plenty of sulfur, we're giving the body plenty of glucosamine to repair itself, and then we add in some boron, which is a cofactor to the healing process. It's one of these assistory supplements. And then on top of that, I add something called UC2 collagen. UC2 collagen is it's something that mimics the effects of chicken sternum. It's garnished from there, and it's used because it's the same type of cartilage that our bodies produce in the joint and connective tissue. Now, what's the purpose of consuming that? Well, in our digestive system, we have immune cells known as Peyer's patches. And these immune cells will get exposed, okay, to anything we eat. And so if you eat a piece of steak, the immune system gets exposed to it and it realizes, all right, this is something that we can expect to see in the body because the person has eaten it, it's going to be absorbed into the bloodstream. We're not going to hyper respond to this. We're not going to attack this as a foreign body. The problem is we don't eat any cartilage and connective tissue in our bodies. So a lot of times when we damage joint and connective tissue and expose that underlying collagen, the body sees it as a foreign body and attacks it. It's not there before, it was covered up, now it's exposed, let's go after it. And so a lot of times you get an injury and it just gets progressively worse and worse and worse. Through scientific experimentation, they found that by orally exposing the immune cells to a cartilage that's very similar to what we have in our natural body, and once again, they're using this undenatured means unprocessed, chicken collagen, in a very low dosage, 20 to 40 milligrams a day, it will desensitize the immune system. It'll tell the immune system, hey, yo, lay off the joint and connective tissue. That's stuff that's supposed to be there. And what you'll find is that if your immune cells are not attacking, your injury constantly, you're going to heal that injury much quicker. So ARTHROLYZE has very precise science in it, from both a immune system modulating effect to a raw materials effect, giving the body the raw materials it needs to repair damaged tissue. And remember, we're athletes. We damage a lot of connective tissue and cartilage on a daily basis in the gym. We beat ourselves up. We need to repair it just like we need to repair the muscle cells that we damage in the gym. And once again, threshold amount of glucosamine sulfate is very important. 4 grams per day, that's the minimum. Some people take more than that. I remember talking to Jay Cutler once. He told me I think he was taking like 10 grams a day when he had injured himself. So more can be better, but I find that the 4 grams is the threshold amount that you should use on a daily basis if you really train hard, okay? Don't wait till you're in pain, but if you are in pain, start taking it. But I'm saying if you just started training and you're really beating yourself up in the gym, you gotta take a joint and connective tissue. Now, I don't care if you use my product or not. The reason I put ARTHROLYZE Elite together is because I put all the components you could possibly need to repair joint and connective tissue while modulating the immune system, while not reducing the inflammatory response in the body to building muscle. It's a science-based product that I've tested out myself and on innumerable clients of mine that works. And after all, that's what we're looking for. Don't just buy window dressing. Don't buy pseudoscience that doesn't really apply to athletes, but that applies to 90-year-old people. Buy stuff, okay, that is going to work for what you're looking to accomplish, which is healthy, functional joints. I'm Dave Palumbo with the Species Nutrition Special Spotlight.